Let's start with what you're up to now at the football club, because I think people hear loans manager and I think there's perhaps a bit of ambiguity around that, so maybe you could just sort of clear up.
Well, yeah, it's I completely oversee the loans programme at the football club that was introduced 4 years ago. Sort of devised it, shaped it, created it, and hopefully improved on it year on year. So in a nutshell, it's from start to finish almost. So Daniel and Stuart will, give me players that we want to get out on loan for whatever reason, and that could be a number of reasons. One could be to get a senior player first team football, one could be to get a younger player senior football experience as well. Others could be just to get players a career, that might not be good enough for us. So, I literally then go through every stage of that, from placing the players at clubs, negotiating contracts and finances with clubs. And once that's done, then monitoring the players as closely as we possibly can. And this is where we are right on top of it. And other clubs around the country have identified this as to how detailed we do it. So literally watching the players training, speaking to the managers, speaking to the players and the coaches, watching the games, and making sure that any player that goes out on loan is monitored just as much, if not more, than they would be when they're here. And that sounds crazy, but because the players obviously on a daily basis, you're taking the medical information, the sports science data, but we do that as well as speaking to the players as well, so arguably more than when they're here. And we've got that sort of mentality now, environment at the club where, probably prior to that, players go on loan, they think, that's me out the door really, but it's almost flipped now to the point where the success stories we've had with the likes of the two Murphys, James Maddison and even Ben Godfrey, Todd Cantwell now, players that have been on loan and come back and are now in our team or have been in our team. Players now see that as, this is a great opportunity to get into Daniel's team. And we always see you either go straight into the team, like if Max Aarons, Jamal Lewis have done, or you go out to a loan and then into the team. And so players now, far from thinking maybe at one time, they're sending me on loan, I'm no chance at the club. It's now, no, there's a reason for this. And hopefully one of those reasons is you come back and you play in Daniel's team.
I was going to say, because obviously this club has shifted its focus massively onto the academy, and I guess having a really sort of thriving loan system is part of that to get those young players games. You've given Todd Cantwell as an example. How important is it for those players to go and get games at a young age to then experience football?
Well, yeah, you've got to have the people at the top of the footballing tree, if you like, at a club have got to be believers in certain things. Stuart and Daniel are big believers in players playing football, senior football. Now, obviously, at other clubs, if that's different, you'd have less players going out on loan, and there's no right or wrong, but we believe, and I believe, that the sooner you can get players who are ready to play senior football experience and exposure to senior football, the better. We feel it brings on the development much more quickly than playing under 23 football, and that's no disrespect to under 23 football. So again, some clubs will have players, don't let them out, let's coach them, let's play them 23s, train with the first team. But we've seen and we believe that a player that can go and play senior football at whatever level, from championship down to conference, whichever suits them players ideally, we feel it then exposes them to real football. And I'm not saying under 23 football isn't real, but results don't really matter. Whereas even at the National League, there's jobs on the line, there's points on the line, there's mortgages on the line. It's real football, and we've seen some of our younger players go out and wow, after one game their eyes are open and thinking that this is what it's all about. And for us that's priceless, because they probably won't get that in under 23 football, where it's, most of the teams play the same way. It's, it's not the end of the world if you lose a game, but whereas it can be in senior football. So Todd Cantwell was a classic example, and a good case study, if you like, of loan players, because Todd was seeing some of his teammates go out on loan and wondering why he wasn't being given a chance. And again, that's where it's my job, if you like, to make sure we get the right club for the right player. And the reason we didn't loan Todd out at the same time as some of his teammates was because we didn't feel there was the right club that wanted to take him. Todd, 18 months ago, is different size and shape now. You know, he's more muscle bound now, he's taller, he's stronger. Whereas 18 months ago, he wasn't as strong and he wasn't as aggressive, and he wasn't as... he didn't have the defensive elements of his game that he's got now then. So if I'd have put Todd Cantwell 18 months ago to a League Two club, where the ball might have been just flying over his head all the game, where he'd have been probably put on his backside time after time, he might not have learned what we wanted him to learn. So we were holding back on clubs that were inquiring about him because we didn't feel it was the right suit. We'd had experience of watching Dutch second division football, and we just felt that was perfect for him, because if you watch the second division football in Holland, all the teams play. They try and play out from the back. So it was perfect for Todd, where it protected him a little bit from direct football and people, you know, jumping on him and smashing him with their elbows. We were still exposing him to senior football because it's physical, they tackle, but it's technical, and we just felt he'd see a lot more of the ball there while being exposed to senior football. And it was a bit of a gamble, to be fair, because we'd not put anyone in Dutch second division before, but as we saw with Todd, he went to Sittard, and I think they were 5th or 6th in the table, and they flew, and he flew. You know, all of a sudden he got it, and I was speaking regularly to him about his performances. I saw a big change in him after about 5 games there, where he just suddenly looked more mature on the pitch, and I said this to him. And he said, "What do you mean by mature?" I said, "It's a maturity of your game, how you're now playing the game, your responsibility, the positions you're taking up when we lose the ball now." I said, "You weren't doing that in the under-23s. You were sort of waiting for the team to get it back to you." And I said, "You're now learning about the game and you look more mature and more responsible." And of course, he did particularly well with them. They got promoted. And I can then come back to Stuart and Daniel and go, "Look, he's done well enough. You might want to have a look at him now in your squad." And that was the story with Todd. And, you know, he's now been a regular part of this championship season. So, of course, we've put other players now in the Dutch second division as well, with Sabas Morgos and now Simon Powers over in the Dutch second division as well. So, again, it's making sure the right player for the right club, and taking your time sometimes, holding them back, and then obviously getting them out where we feel it's right and what will most benefit their development.
Yeah, I was going to say, because we've seen a lot more English clubs now looking at loaning players out abroad. That's something that seems a lot more modern and a lot more rife sort of these days. Why do you think that is, as opposed to a League Two club?
I think a lot of it is sometimes the clubs have links, you know, so sometimes there's no great thinking behind it, there's no genius behind it, it's just they've got a link with the club, send them there. We haven't. We've got links, if you like, with Dordrecht and Sittard only because we've put loan players to them. So there is a bit of a communication between the two, but there's no no written contracts or anything like that. But I think it's only for certain players now. You know, if Stuart and Daniel came to me and said, "Look, we've got these 2 21-year-old players, where do they need to go? We've got to have a look what they need, you know, how we see them, what's their pathway into our first team. And if it is that way, then let's place them at the proper club." But sometimes it isn't that. Sometimes it's, you know, it's to, and again, make no bones about it, the loan programme here is to get players to play in our team, priority number 1. Number 2 is to make money on them, you know, to go and increase the value if they're not going to be for us. Or 3, as I said before, to get them a career, you know, if they're not going to be with us, to go and get them exposed to senior football. So either a League Two loan or a foreign club, it's them making sure that the pathway for each player is individual. So what's right for a Todd Cantwell going to Holland might not be right for a Ted Bloggs, Billy Smith, who needs League Two football, where he might need bullying and beating up a little bit if that's beneficial for him. So there's no 2 players the same, and, you know, every player is, you know, we've got to make sure we get it right for each player, otherwise we could lose one.
Does some of it come down to personality as well? Because you can be the best player in the world and really technical, but perhaps don't have the personality to fight and scrap. Is that something you take it to?
Yeah. Again, and Todd won't mind me saying this, keep mentioning Todd Cantwell, but Todd has been at this football club since I think he was 8, 9 years old. Never known anything different. You know, he's been here all his life. He's come and trained on a Tuesday and Thursday night during the junior academy years to a full-time apprentice to then a professional footballer. And Norwich, as you see, the training ground's nice. You know, he's never had to do anything. He's never really had to look after himself, fend for himself. It's all been there for him in the right way. So, you know, how could we sort of toughen Todd up a little bit? You know, we looked at the football side of it. You know, we need to make sure we do it right for him. But how can we, as a lifestyle now, expose him to, you know, if he wants something, he's got to go and ask someone now, or he's got to go and do it for himself. And that was maybe to take him out of his comfort zone, outside of Norfolk, and, you know, rather than loaning him to a Cambridge or a Colchester United where he's down the road, get him out to Holland. Now he's going to have to fend for himself a little bit, and again in the right way, because we were monitoring it. But, you know, there would be things where he's got to go and, you know, make friends with his teammates, or, you know, go and ask if his electric's been switched off. You know, there's mum and dad are not there. There's no coaches there. That he's got to go and do it. So certainly, you know, that. From developing him as a more of a grown-up, if you like. And again, we found it was fantastic. He did everything and more that we expected of him on and off the field. And again, it's fantastic for us to see when he comes back and plays in the first team and contributes to the season we're having. How well, you know, that happened as a result of his loan spell in Sittard.
You must take particular pride in seeing those players who have taken that journey. Ben Godfrey's another example of that in the first team. It must go to show that, especially to the younger players perhaps who might be for whatever reason unsure about going on loan, that actually there is an end goal.
100%. Again, it's changed, like I say now. If we'd have been having this conversation 4 years ago, you know, players would have probably seen me and probably tried to run away, because you're thinking, if I don't want to go on loan, that's the end of me. But now they're coming to me. When can I go on loan? Because they want to go and see what all these other players have done. I think that's for me. So at Norwich City, and again, I'm only speaking for this club, you know, if you're put on loan, you should be taking that as a pat on the back, really, rather than let's get him out and try and get him some football, because he's not going to get it here. It's almost, and I credit Daniel with almost the bravery with Ben Godfrey, for him to give me Ben Godfrey to go on loan. The easiest thing for Daniel and Stuart would have been to keep him last year, have him on the bench, and he probably would have played half a dozen games. But we felt as a group that 6 games, maybe 20 minutes here and there through the season with Norwich, was outweighed by going to Shrewsbury in League One division below, and playing, I think Ben played 51 games and ended up playing 2 finals at Wembley. We felt it was brave, because easy to keep your players by, but Daniel went, no, okay, let's get him out, and forfeited a player, if you like, from his squad. But, you know, I put him down at Shrewsbury, and we laughed about it at the time, because it seemed at one point we were putting everybody at Shrewsbury. We had Carlton Morris there, Ben Godfrey there, and Ibu Adams there. And Stuart and Daniel are like, what's going on in Shrewsbury? What have you got down? Have you got a business interest down with them? But again, was my role. I knew how Paul Hurst worked. I'd been to see them train. I saw the facilities they got. I'd also seen the squad they got, and I thought start of last season, should I say, I thought there's a really good squad there who could have a good go at, you know, making waves in League One. And again, fortunately, I was proved right, because there was a thing in the Shrewsbury dressing room at the start of the season where league predictors and all the pundits and the writers, and they pinned it up in the canteen, and it had Shrewsbury at the bottom. Everybody thought Shrewsbury would finish bottom of League One last season. So they put it up obviously as a motivating factor, and obviously they finished in the playoff final at Wembley. But that was the reason why Carlton and Ben went to Shrewsbury, because I felt they could have a successful season and they could add to the team and get value. And I think, as I say, Carlton played 40 games or something, Ben played 50, and 2 really successful loans. Carlton unfortunately ruptured his ACL in the final at Wembley. Otherwise, what might have happened to him this season? Ben flourished, similar to Todd, was outstanding in many games. And then again, it's easy for me to go, Stuart, you've got to come and watch this kid. He's ready. He's ready for the first team squad, and or for Daniel to have a look at him and compare him with defenders, midfielders at the current squad. So, and that's what happened. Ben got his chance, had to wait a little bit, got his chance, and now he's a regular in the team. So another one who can, this is where it makes it almost easier, not easier for me, but as you were saying now, the younger professionals at the club now can see what happened to Todd Cantwell, Carlton Morris, Ben Godfrey, and prior to that, Jacob Murphy, Josh Madison's, and think, wow, you know, look where they are now, sort of thing. So a lot, you know, you don't have to sell a loan move to players now. They know that this is what we do it properly, thoroughly, and if it works out for everybody, then, you know, you've got your chance, if you like, at this club.
What is the point that you take a player from the under-23s or from the under-18s and say, actually, we think you're more suited to a loan move as opposed to youth football? When does that point sort of happen?
It's a group discussion, really. It's everybody's opinion. Steve Weaver, academy manager, Stuart Webber, Daniel Fark, myself, you know, and every player is different, and this is where we almost have pathways and career plans, we call it, for each player. So, as you rightly say, one player might be, we've got to keep him here, he's not ready yet, or do we keep him here because he'll benefit it more? And like Max Aarons, Jamal Lewis, you know, they didn't need loan moves, you know, they just needed keeping here, and that when the time was right, off you go. Max Aarons and Jamal particular done fantastically well in the first team, and from the under-23s, where another player we might need to go and get him out on loan. So it's a case of just looking at, again, individuals and what's best for them, what's right for them. Some need to go on loan, some don't. You know, some you can find out about on loan might not be good enough, and that tells you all you need to know. But we have had a lot of success with it, but behind that success comes a lot of work, and it doesn't happen by chance. There's a lot of people who feed into me. You know, we have meetings, and there's a lot of thought and a lot of work gone behind it, that if the players then do their bit, then you've got a good chance.
I mean, the way we spoke about loans are very positive here. What are your thoughts on a club like Chelsea, who do loan out, I think, 40 plus youngsters out on loan without the intention of them getting to the first team? What's your thoughts on that? Because that's a completely different...
Yeah, absolutely, 100% right, and it is totally different. They do that as a business. It's an individual business within the Chelsea organisation, if you like, and they would openly admit it's just to make money, primarily. Now, of course, they would have players. They would say players go out to get careers, but it's probably not careers at Chelsea. There's very few that would go out of those 40 and come back and play regular football with Chelsea, but they've proved that they make millions from it. And again, that's their strategy philosophy. It's not ours. Ours go out with a primary aim of making Daniel's squad better, or increasing the value of players if need be, but we don't sort of bulk buy players with the purpose of getting them out on loan to sell them without a chance of going in the first team. That's not how it works. It's pointless having your academy then. You know, we're big believers in players coming through, and again, if they're good enough, they'll go straight in, like we're saying with Max. If not, you know, what's their pathway? But Chelsea do it their way, Manchester City do it their way, we do it our way, and I'm not saying there's a right or wrong. But this club is a big believer in, you know, making the decisions individual for each player, whereas maybe a Chelsea might just do it as a block.
Obviously, you've got history yourself in youth development and youth coaching. You won the youth cup with this football club quite famously. How special was that group at the time? Because among the fans, it was a really special moment.
It was fantastic, and again, that's the way the supporters buy into this club. You know, it was 22,000, you know, which is unheard of, you know, in youth football. But they filled the stadium. I think it was 3,000 went into Stamford Bridge, which was amazing. But from that team, yeah, most of the players have gone on had professional careers. I think there's only maybe two that haven't, to different degrees and at different levels, obviously. Some are in the Premier League, some in the lower leagues. But that is a classic example of, you know, this is what we feel this football club should be about. I'm not saying they should win the FA Youth Cup every year, but getting players the opportunity to go and make a name for themselves here, rather than, you know, elsewhere. We had players there that have come and played in our team that have now gone on. There's players that will be given a chance, and whether the youth team, the under-23s, are successful or not, really isn't the end goal. It's more for what can we get from it. So, you know, if the under-23s don't win the league, it's not a problem. If the youth team don't win a league, not a problem. It's about what we can get out of it, because ultimately the first team is all important. So if we get one player from the under-23s this year and they don't win a game, it's job done. Same with the under-18s. If we can get one in a year, 2 years' time, that's job done, because ultimately it's about the first team that you know we all strive and we all live or die by.
I think what made the achievement of the FA Youth Cup win so spectacular was the fact they were playing against Chelsea, who had £7 million players in their academy, and I think a lot of fans, particularly at that point, would probably ask the question, well, why weren't those players given the chance to go in the first team sooner? Perhaps if they'd have been in this structure, they perhaps would have been. Yeah,
possibly. You know, Chelsea, as you say, I can remember the time we were playing the games, they had players in there that they'd spent millions on, that were on fortunes in wages, and I think our lot were 150 quid each, I think, you know, but you know, you organise them, you get them right for the game, and you do you know your homework on the opposition. I think that proved what can be done. But again, even though it was fantastic to win the FA Youth Cup, I think we're all thinking, what could this mean for the first team? You know, we've got this bunch of players who've performed so well. Then you know we've got to make sure that we get some of these, or we get them in the first team, or we make money, we make good money on them, because the club has to make its own money here. And pleasingly, out of that team, you know, there was a bit of success. Again, some of the players, the Murphy twins, were sold for millions, but both had played for us. So yeah, I think we always thought there was a good group there that had a chance of, you know, getting into our first team. And pleasingly, there's players now at the academy from the 23s going right down to the under 14s, where you're thinking, well, a lot can happen in the years, but there's a bit of talent there, and let's make sure we don't lose them. Let's make sure whatever career path they need, we'll do our best to get them, so that hopefully they're knocking on the first team door.
That must be one of the most rewarding things, particularly in this job and being a part of the academy, is seeing those players like the Murphy twins go on and fulfil their dreams of being Premier League footballers. I mean, how does that make you feel, seeing them turn out most weeks?
Well, yeah, it's great, because you know you've played a part in that, as a lot of people have. It's fantastic seeing them, because you've worked with them from when they were 16, 17 years old, and well, the Murphys actually from 14. You know, I worked with when I was coaching the junior teams. So it's great to see them coming through, but I think for the supporters as well, to see one of their own, if you like. You know, everybody likes seeing big signings coming in, but I think equally supporters like to see one that's come through from the academy, and that has to be the case here. You know, we're never going to be in a position, and even if, you know, hopefully we're promoted to the Premier League, the club isn't going to go out and spend £30 million and £20 million on a player. That just won't happen. You know, there's not many clubs that could do that. So these players at the academy know that if they're good enough and, you know, they work hard enough, there will be an opportunity. You know, they will get an opportunity to play in our first team. So hopefully they're all striving for that. But when you do get one or two in there, not that it makes any more difference to the game on the day, but when you've got Max Aarons and Jamal Lewis and Ben Godfrey and Todd Cantwell playing, it's fantastic to see, because, you know, the club, the academy has been doing something right, the coaches have been doing something right, the players have been doing something right, and everybody who's had a part in that has done the job. And I think the supporters, they respond to that. You know, they think, well, fantastic, where's the next one? And that's what we have to do. You know, the Murphys of the history, if you like, Max Aarons, Jamal Lewis are history now in terms of the academy that they've done. So what's the next one now? You know, what's the pathway for the next Josh Murphy, the next Max Aarons? You know, who is he? What does he need to do? How do we go about it? And let's get another one or two in there.
When I sat down and spoke to Stuart Webber a month or so ago, he said that often supporters are harsher on players that come through the academy. Is that something you agree with? And if so, how does that impact?
Yeah, it's... well, the Murphys are the classic ones, aren't they? You know, they had a little bit of stick. I think, you know, I don't know why. I don't know why that is, but, you know, whether it's right or wrong. But they both came in for a bit of flack when things weren't going quite so well. I don't think Max Aarons or Jamal have had any stick, because, you know, as we speak, we're top of the league, and they've both been fantastic. But yeah, I don't know why that is. You know, I certainly know, and from what we saw at the FA Youth Cup, the backing we had, you know, it was unbelievable, the support. You know, if there'd have been 8,000 to 9,000 at Carrow Road, we'd have been blown away by it. But the response we had from the supporters told us as a club, You know, they want to back these players. They want to see them coming through. So yeah, it was a bit. I haven't got an answer as to why or if any of the homegrown ones get any more stick or less stick than the players that transferred in. I wouldn't know, but I certainly know, and I would think again, if ever the 18s get anywhere near the Youth Cup finals, semi-finals, I'll be pretty sure Carrow Road will be sold out like it was when we won it a few years ago.
We have to speak really about your brief spelling management at the football club. What did you learn from that? Because from the outside at least it seemed like you were sort of catapulted into it. For you that must have been quite some experience. It
was fantastic. Yeah, obviously the last 5 games of the Premier League season I would have picked a little bit easier opposition if it had been perfect. It would have been nice to maybe had 3 or 4 more games, who would have known, but yeah, you can't help but learn immensely from, you know, the exposure to that and the challenges you face. You know, I think 12 months after winning the Youth Cup at Stamford Bridge, I was stood next to Jose Mourinho in a Premier League game, you know, literally 12 months later. So of course, you know, the challenges and the tasks you face and that, you stand up to it. And something I've always revelled in as a challenge, and everybody does as much homework as they can on the opposition, but you're dealing with day-to-day individuals, and at a football club here, you know, there's probably 200 people, 100 people, whatever there is, and when you're the manager, then everybody needs a yes or a no. You know, everything comes to you, and so obviously the workload is incredible. It's slightly different now, where, you know, a lot of clubs have gone down the head coach route rather than the managers, and you know, a manager sometimes has to manage a club, a head coach sometimes, and just coaches the team, which is obviously the model we've got here. So fantastic model in my opinion, that Daniel is the head coach, just go and coach the team, leave some of the other stuff to Stuart, who can take that off his doorstep. But yeah, it was an incredible opportunity, incredible time for me, one I thoroughly enjoyed, had a bit of success with. Some of the performances, the attacking football that was always my mantra, always will be. You know, hopefully some people thought, you know, some of the football was great to watch, and it was one I thoroughly enjoyed.
Yeah, it definitely was good to watch at times. You mentioned there the new structure. Is that something that you would have preferred to work in that role then? Because you spoke about, obviously in the academy, I suppose the focus is on coaching the players and improving them, to suddenly then be catapulted in a role where you are in charge of a lot of departments and you do have to micromanage people, I suppose. Is this structure something you felt you could have done perhaps or achieved a bit more?
To be fair to the people that were in place at the time, that was, you know, we were pretty much heading that way anyway. You know, I wasn't having to deal with some of the admin side, the financial side of it. I was primarily, you know, picking and coaching and managing the team. So, you know, I would never have a bad word said against any of the staff. David McNally at the time, you know, they pretty much were going down this route anyway now. The fact that it's in place now and structured is very clear and very defined, that it might not have been so much then. You know, we were heading that way as a club, I think. And obviously the structure now with the sporting director and the head coach is very clear, and I think it's perfect for certainly for this football club now, that's been backed up by the results. You know, maybe not last season, but certainly I think people can now see it's working. It took a bit of time, you know, maybe a little bit longer time than some people would have wanted, but as we speak now, I think everybody can see that we were patient, and you've now got a football team that's hopefully, you know, going to be playing in the Premier League next season, touch wood.
When a manager leaves a club, often we hear about a club, you know, getting a new man in, it's re-energised, but very often we don't hear from the man who's left. How tough is it as a manager who leaves a job to sort of to go from a day-to-day job where you're running a football club to nothing? Is that quite a tough transition?
Well, I don't know, to be honest, because I didn't stop, certainly, you know, and I'm still working at the football club. I would imagine knowing the workload that a manager has or a head coach has, if you could call it whatever you want, knowing that, you know, you're in at 7:30 in the morning, you're leaving at 9 o'clock at night sometimes, and then you're going home watching, you know, DVDs. You never stop as a as a head coach or a manager. So I would imagine then, you know, the managers, head coaches who do lose the jobs and don't then, what do they do the next day? I would imagine that's a huge sort of difference in their lifestyle, from going to having 1,000,001 things on your mind to nothing. I can imagine that must be unbelievable. Fortunately, that didn't happen to me, but I would suppose people say, well, you know, why do people want to be managers? But they're not too long out the game before they want to get back in, and it's the you know, the addiction of football. Everybody loves it, you know, and the stick people get, the praise you get, you know, they all want to come back into it. But yeah, I would imagine from going to such an intense workload to nothing is a big shift.
Was that intense workload a reason why you didn't fancy another managerial job elsewhere, or was it something that this job came up and it suited you much better? Well,
yeah, it's not that I didn't fancy another managerial job. We had a pathway here with what was going to happen. I obviously don't want to speak confidentially about things that were, but yeah, I just carried on doing the work that I knew that was going to be linking to what I'm doing now. So yeah, that's about it on that one.
That's fair enough, and I suppose we get here now, and you're part of this football club and a major part of it. I mean, Stuart Webber said you're a great mentor to him. It must be brilliant to be involved in the day-to-day running, particularly when the club is doing so well at the moment.
Absolutely. You know, the job I'm doing, I take pride in it, as I said earlier, and you know, it's nice that people are recognising us as a club now, and the loan programme is a part of what we're doing here. And an important part, just as anything else is. And I think one of the biggest compliments I can pay to Stuart is that, you know, I look at the way he manages people, and he manages the football club. And if you're a lone player manager, that's not just your sole responsibility and nothing else. If you're a sports scientist, you're not just a sports scientist and nothing else. What else can you bring to the table? He's open to ideas and suggestions, and you know, I think day one, the first thing he said to me, he said, look, the experience you've got, where you've played, where you've managed, where you've coached, we can't let that go to waste. So, you know, he's open to people coming and making suggestions, and I think that's why it's worked so well, you know, because you'd have to have been here a while, I suppose, to see the way it's been and the differences in it. But how I see it now is a football club where, you know, everybody's open to suggestion. People want to come here, want to work hard. The environment, the culture that the first team are playing in it's positive, you know, and I don't think that's it's certainly a big reason for me why they are where they are. You know, there's people are humble, respectful, and of course you're always going to have your problems. But I just see the building around here now. You know, the building's changing, you know, it's progress going forward, the pitches have changed, and I just see the environment and the culture that's led by Stuart he's created that. Results on the pitch will always determine it, you know, it doesn't matter how good your environment is and your facilities are if the team are losing, but I don't think it's no coincidence why, you know, we've created this here now, and it's translating to excellence on the pitch, which is pleasing in what we've seen so far this season.
I mean, everyone in football, particularly supporters, speak about this idea of togetherness, and I think this club radiates that whenever you go to the stadium. The fans and the team are together, the manager and the team are together, and the manager and the supporters are together.
Yeah.
Is that something that the staff feel inside the football club? Because I think it's this perception outside that everyone's together and everything's close knit, and that breeds success. Is that something that certainly this sort of structure allows that togetherness to come together?
I think that's a great word, yeah. It is a great word. It sums up what I've just said, basically, that togetherness, because, you know, you've got to have the link from the supporters and the players and the head coach and vice versa. You know, if they're not on the same page, it's going to be tough, you know, and you see what's happening now this season. You know, the supporters, not that they never fill the ground, they fill the ground whether we're in the Premier League or the Conference. There'll be 27,000 fans here. It's fantastic. But, you know, when you've got them willing and wanting the team to do well, and wanting the head coach to do well, and wanting the sporting director to do well, it's a big difference in than just hoping or let's see what happens. You just get that feeling now that everyone, it's you know, it's a cliche, but everyone sort of seems to be pushing in the same direction. It's the same that up here. You know, you've got that environment that, like I say, people look forward to coming to work and keen to improve, and you know, no one's it's not outside their remit to go and knock on Stuart Webber's door and say, what about this, or have you thought of this? Whereas I'm sure at some clubs that wouldn't be allowed. You know, you'd probably lose your job. You go and try and tell, you know, the guy at the top of the tree, maybe try this or maybe try that. It's almost, you'd probably get sacked for it, but that isn't the case, and Stuart would tell you that. You know, he's happy to take suggestions off everyone, and I think his leadership in that respect has been fantastic. He's brought a head coach in that's now showing his tactical acumen. You know, he's got a team playing now that's taken maybe a bit of time to get where he is, but Daniel had that vision. This is how he wanted his team to play, and now this, you know, for me, the best team in the Championship, bar none. The way they play the game, the way they deal with the football, and hopefully there'll be bigger challenges next season, but it's working so far.
And what about you personally? Are you still involved in the coaching side of the club or the recruitment side of the club? I think I saw or heard an interview with you a while ago that said you were sort of responsible for a key part of the James Maddison transfer. So is that something you still dive into?
Yeah, when I'm watching, because obviously the loan players, I'll go and watch all of them. We've got 13 players on loan currently. One's in America, one's in Germany, one's in Holland, one's in Scotland. And so, yeah, but like I say, we watch them, we go and watch them. And it's important we do that. So obviously there's a lot of my time is spent watching other games. So I don't get to see us a lot, Norwich. I think I've seen 6 games this season at home, you know, and they've been Friday nighters or Wednesday when there's been no lone player games. But obviously when I'm going to watch a Jacob Murphy, you know, I'm not just watching Jacob Murphy, I'm obviously keeping my eyes open in case there's anything else. The priority is watching that one player. But, you know, it's, of course, we talk about suggestions of that. There's nothing wrong with me coming back and going, there's a kid at Coventry who ain't too bad, we might want to have a look at him, sort of thing. And that's obviously how the Maddison thing came about. I think I saw 17 games that year live watching Jacob. And of course Maddison's playing in most of them, so that was sort of the link as to how that came about. And obviously James came in, took him a bit of time to get his opportunity here, and I think Stuart and Daniel gave him that chance. And so it was great to be a part of that. But yeah, and in terms of coaching, we're just starting like an elite program now with the 23s and the 18s. So I'll be having an input into that. How that'll work yet, you know, we'll devise that out. But it's again going back to the case of our best players in the reserves 23s. You know, how can we get them into the first team? What do they need? Do they need coaching? Do they need loans? So it's something we're really heavily involved in and heavily on top of, that we can get the next 1 or 2 through.
I think a few supporters, particularly watching this season, have suggested you teach the players a bit of penalty. What would you think about that?
I agree. We can't take a penalty to save our lives here, can we? No, it's baffled me because I watch the players taking penalties in training, and they never miss. It's incredible, and I think that's what's bemused Daniel more than anything else. Is I think Kenny missed the last one, and someone said to me his record in Scotland was 15 out of 15, and he takes one for us, and he misses it. So I don't know what it is. Fortunately, I don't think there's been any damage done by them. I think there's only one that's cost us points. I think I might be wrong, but yeah, it is. You know, it's something, and I don't care what anybody says. I know people will say you can't. What's the point in practicing them, because you can't recreate the pressure that you face on a match day. I don't go with that, unfortunately. I just think it's absolutely true. You can't recreate the pressure, because trust me, when the referee points to the spot on a Saturday and gives a penalty and you're the guy taking it, then the pulse starts racing. You know, you feel you're under pressure. So don't get me wrong. There is pressure on you, and it's not a nice pressure before the penalty. It's nice when it goes in, but my answer to that would be, yeah, you can't recreate the pressure, but I used to take 20 penalties every day in training, every day. So if we were in Monday to Friday, I'd taken 100 penalties that day. So yes, you couldn't recreate the pressure. Yes, the heart was racing, but I knew in the back of my mind, I've taken 100 penalties this week. This is just another one. It's going to be, you do your job properly, you will score. It gives you the confidence to think I could do this with my eyes shut. And that's how I used to feel when, the penalty was given, I used to just sort of take myself away, let all the yellow cards be dished, let all the players have a little, pushing them. I just take myself away from it and think, it's just another pen here, you can do this with your eyes closed. So I think it just relaxes you that little bit more than if I hadn't taken 100 penalties in the week, I'd have been thinking, I hope I score, rather than I'm pretty confident I am going to score. And that's the only difference for me. And I'd put it to why does Tiger Woods practice 100 putts a day? Why does Roger Federer practice 100 serves a day? It's not that they can recreate the pressure in the game, but they can do it with their eyes closed if they practice enough.
Finally, for me, do you still get people coming and shouting "Hello, Neil" to you?
It's never going to be forgotten. It's never going to be forgotten, is it?
Lines in your commentary.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I did enjoy it. Obviously, I think there's probably 3 or 4 calls that you probably wouldn't have wanted out of 10,000. Which
probably sit here and name them now.
But it was funny, and the Barry one was great. And I actually spoke to him. I think he phoned in again, and we had a good laugh about it. It was great. But that's the game, and it's something I suggested to BBC. When they were doing it, I said, look, you need to get fans calling in and talking about what they've just seen, like you would in a pub, and it's probably the worst suggestion they ever made.
Well, at least you know what's going on in training now.
That's it, yeah. But that was genuine. I didn't used to watch it, and I watch it now, but I didn't know then, so I was being honest.
Neil, thank you very much.
Welcome.
Thank you.